The show is about to begin.
Is that pre-recorded or something? It's been exactly the same way every time.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
It's a good voice of God. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome John Donvan to the stage.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, I'm John Donvan. I'm the host and moderator of Intelligence Squared US, and we're about to get started. I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to chat through, particularly for people who are new to our debates, and I would like to report that this is Intelligence Squared US debate number 146. Thank you. I want to talk through with you a little bit about your role as members of our audience, because it's not simply to be passive and take it all in, but you actually have a participatory role. The most important one is that we want to know where you stand on this motion as you come in off the street. And we're going to invite you, and that can start right now, to go to your phones and vote to tell us where you stand on the motion. The choices are going to be yes, no, or undecided. You can just open a browser on your phone, whether it's Chrome or Firefox or Safari or even Edge, and type in the URL that's behind me, iq2us.org/vote. That's iq2us.org/vote, and you will be taken to a choice of for, against, or undecided. Once you make your choice, once you vote, you do get a chance to change your mind. You'll be asked if you want to confirm your vote or not. If you do want to change it, say no at that point. You get another shot. Otherwise, say yes, and your vote goes through. And when your vote's been gone through and is locked in, you're going to be seeing a live countdown clock. So you'll have some time to do that as the evening proceeds, but we want to have that all happen towards the beginning of the event itself. This program goes out, actually we're already live streaming, but we live on as a podcast and as a radio broadcast heard on public radio stations across the country. We're also on Newsy, which is a cable channel that covers news and recently brought us in as a partner, and we're delighted to be doing that with Newsy as well. That show is called Up for Debate, and it's a shortened version of all of these debates. And what we do, and I want to explain this, is we produce the debate, and then for the podcast and also for the radio broadcast, we then shape it into a kind of radio-sounding program or a television-looking program. The reason I'm telling you that is you're going to be watching a little bit the process happen. There will be times when you'll notice that I'll say things like, I'm John Donvan, and I'll be right back. But I actually won't go anywhere. I will still be here, and I'll just pick up. And also through the course of the evening, we do want the audience that hears this on the podcast to know that you're here, because these debaters are here trying to persuade you. So it's good for them to know that you're here and it's good for the listeners to know that you're here. So please feel totally free to give voice to how you feel about the things you're hearing on stage. If you hear a point that you like, please feel totally free to applaud that point or to cheer. We're very into positive reinforcement. We do, however, discourage really seriously now. I mean, it's booing and hissing. That's not the spirit of what we do. So if you don't like something that you hear, you can just remain deathly silent, or perhaps let loose with a sardonic chuckle, something along those lines. But we want to keep this sort of upbeat in the spirit of friendly competition, because these debaters are really here to compete with you. The final thing I want to say is that in the middle of the debate, I come to you for questions. The way that will work is that I'll ask you to raise your hand. A microphone will be brought to you, and you can stand up, and I'll give you about 25 seconds to ask a question. And I really needed two things to happen. I need it to be on topic, to move the debate along, to not be repetitive of something we've already covered. So I'll have to respectfully pass on questions like that, but for you to really relate it to what we're talking about today. And as you know, our resolution is swipe left, dating apps have killed romance. And the other thing is I really need it to be a question. I don't want you to debate with the debaters, but make it really a question. And you'll know it's a question if a question mark comes naturally at the end of whatever it is that you say. The last thing, and I want to acknowledge, usually we have a chat on stage with Bob Rosencrantz, who is our founder. He's just going to be audience contained tonight. So Bob Rosencrantz and Alexandra Monroe are co-founders. I just wanted to ask a round of applause for the both of you. And a warning to people in the front row. We don't usually put this warning out, but it's very, very possible that in the course of the evening that waves of love will pour forth from this stage. So if you get drenched, you are sitting there at your own risk. We are not taking any responsibility for that. One last thing. Again, because of the production of the podcast, there are times when it really helps if you're applauding. It adds energy, and it helps us make nice edits. So there will be times when I'm going to ask you to applaud, but it must be spontaneous. So the signal for that impulse you get to applaud spontaneously, so I'll just go like that. I think it's going to be pretty obvious when I'm asking for it. So we're going to begin the formal program now. I'm going to go to my little lectern back there, and when I do, I'm going to ask for a round of spontaneous applause. So, normally on television, people don't know that there's actually a backside to my body because I'm always facing forward. I wasn't sure there was a backside to my body for a long time, but there is, and it looks like this. So. Okay. So that was a good practice. If I could just have one more vociferous round of applause to launch this. Thank you. The number of Americans who have tried at least one dating app has now passed 40 million people. And that is a lot, especially for a phenomenon that really didn't exist 25 years ago. And how has this been for the state of romance? Has it been good because the algorithms are better than humans at matching up people who are compatible? Or has it been bad because having so much choice among potential partners, potentially millions, can turn courtship into something of a commodities business? Well, the arguments go in both of those directions and in plenty others preside, which make us think it has the makings of a good debate. So let's have it. Yes or no to this statement: swipe left, dating apps have killed romance. I'm John Donvan. We have four superbly qualified debaters on the Intelligence Squared U.S. stage. We are at the K Playhouse at Hunter College in New York City. Those debaters will be attacking this question from opposite sides, but of course, with passion. First, though, we're going to have a conversation with someone whose perspective on love in these times we live in will help us set the table for the debate to come. Daniel Jones is editor of the New York Times Modern Love column. He has personally read more than 80,000 first-person accounts of people struggling to make that connection that we call romance. By our lights, that makes him the expert we need to bring us up to speed on love in the time of Tinder. Please welcome Daniel Jones. Daniel, I just want you to know that in the world I come from, you're considered a big get. You're a big catch. You're a big catch. We're really delighted to have you because we really
That's
do.
good. That's nice to hear.
We do think that the job that you've held for now 12 years, is it?
Coming up on 14.
14 years,
Yeah.
editing the Modern Love column has really given you an insight into the mating habits and aspirations and dreams and despair of more Americans than anybody's ever seen before. And what we really want to understand is what have been the big evolutions from the time you began to the time that we're in now?
I mean, well, it's appropriate that this subject tonight is online dating because more than anything, I see this infusion of technology into relationships as changing things more than anything else. And whether it's online dating apps, whether it's communicating through texting, in a lot of cases, hiding behind technology. We're always trying to make love easier, you know. We're always, and it's true with everything. But with love, we feel like it should be something we can get better at and something that we can solve. And we bring science to it, and we bring technology to it. And what I like about love is that none of that ever seems to work.
There's something that you wrote in the book. I underlined this. I highlighted it. Love is for the sucker in us, not the skeptic.
Yeah.
Hey, what is that getting at?
It means that you have to suspend disbelief. I mean, this idea that, which is a relatively new idea in human history, by the way, that you will fall in love with someone who is meant for you, and that you will spend, you know, I don't know what
the soulmate
typical,
idea.
Yeah, the soulmate. That you're going to spend 50, 60, 70 years together and be satisfied by that one person. That takes a lot of nerve and a lot of belief and a lot of faith. And, you know, I wrote that line in a chapter that's about people falling for catfishing and for cons, for love cons, and how easy that is to happen. Like, it's so easy to judge people who fall for the fake person online and fall deeply for the fake person online. But that's what you have to do. You have to be open to that. And if you aren't open to falling for the fake person online, then you really aren't open to love in a way.
So we're all suckers, you're saying? If we're all suckers for
love? No,
we
aren't. I mean, some people aren't suckers, but I think that makes it harder for them to open up to somebody.
And in the course of the 14 years you've been looking at love in general, but as you've zeroed in on the dating apps, how has the attitude towards dating apps itself changed? Because I remember a time when it was really embarrassing to tell somebody that you had gone online.
I think the stigma has gone away
completely,
almost completely. At least from the stories I get, no one's embarrassed. I used to get stories of people making up fake meeting stories to make up for the fact that they met online. That doesn't really seem to happen anymore. It's a way of meeting people. It's a different way of meeting people, and there are challenges that it presents that are different from the way we used to meet people. But it's still just a way of meeting people.
You talk about if your profile mentions that you're divorced, that can actually be a good thing.
It definitely is.
Why?
Yeah. Because you...
Look at all the hope that just rippled across the room there.
No, I've seen this over and over and over. If you are, a 45-year-old man who's never been married, people think there's a deeper problem there. If you're a 45-year-old man who has been divorced, then at least you were able to convince one person once that you were worthy, and but also that you. I guess the main thing is you committed. You ended up not keeping that commitment ultimately, or maybe she didn't, but you committed, and you want someone who will go there. And if it's someone who's never done that, you're more worried.
Well, now that's divorced individuals. Are there other groups for whom dating apps have caught on faster than for others and are more important in the sort of larger demographic picture than in others?
I mean, in my view, it's caught on mostly with people who are, or more with people who are introverts or shyer, or more prone to fantasy. Because one difference I've noticed in meeting people in person or meeting people online is that when you meet people online, you tend to fantasize more in terms of what this relationship is going to be and how great this person is going to be for you, because those fantasies can't be torn down in the moment. And it's a little bit like the difference between shopping online or shopping in a brick and mortar store, where if I go into a store and I'm like, oh, those jeans are just so great, and I'm going to look so great in those jeans, and then you put them on and you stand in the mirror that shows you from every angle, and you're like, oh God, it doesn't work. And your ability to fantasize was sort of cut short because you were in person and you did it. Online, if you meet someone in person in a bar, those either they don't give you the time of day, in which case your fantasy is dispelled, or you sense there's no chemistry. Smell is important in falling in love, and online there's no smell. Yeah. It's not that a bad smell is off-putting; it's that the smells need to mingle in a way that works.
I had no idea. That's working below the conscious level.
Helen Fisher will tell you about that, I'll bet.
Yeah. And do you have the dog in your picture or not? Is that a charming thing to do?
The dog in the picture?
Yeah.
Well, I've heard that if a man has a dog in the picture, that's a huge plus, because it shows commitment and love and that sort of thing. And for a woman, no dog and looking up.
Really? Yeah. So there's a science to the mystery.
Yeah, Tom will tell you more about
I'm curious in our audience tonight, is anybody here on a date?
They're not going to raise their hand.
Oh, come on, close your eyes and raise your hands if you're here on a date. All right, and the reason we mention this is that at Intelligence Squared, we're sort of committed to the idea of promoting what we call intellidating, which is let's have a smart evening out tonight, and it's going to be as hot as it is enlightening. So I think both of those things are happening right now. But I want to go to take that question to you in terms of the heart wants what it wants, but the brain is the thing that's telling us don't do that stupid thing. Which do you feel, again, through your 80,000 reference points, plays more of a role? Are there people who can talk themselves out of romance because their brain is telling them it's a bad idea and their lives become ruined as a result? Or are there people, the opposite as well? Are people following their hearts and they do incredibly stupid things?
People definitely do incredibly stupid things, following their hearts. I'm not sure I've ever been asked that question in that way before. I think people are terrified, to be vulnerable with someone is what love requires, but that's the hardest thing. And I think it's harder. Part of that is harder these days because we have these ways of sheltering ourselves and being meeker about how we ask someone out. It's just the text that says, "What's up?" And there's so little risk in that. And when you're used to taking, when you're not used to taking risks, it was really a risk. Like when I was in high school, and I'm terrible at relationships. Like part of this column has been like an education for me because it's just not something I've ever been very good at. And the idea of like calling someone or going up to someone in person it was just paralyzing to me. And if I had texting, I would have been emboldened by that, but it would have been this lower bar of like saying, "What's up?" And I think that you have to practice vulnerability to do it well, just like anything. And I worry that our tools are allowing us not to practice vulnerability.
How else has actually working on this column and knowing all of these people's stories, how else has it changed you?
I feel like the question that we ask ourselves constantly with love and relationships is, and this is something that I've sort of absorbed through people's stories, is everyone is wondering, like, how happy do I have a right to be? Mm-hmm. Or how happy is, because everyone's trying to determine if this person is right for them. Am I happy enough with this person? And then in long-term marriage, this isn't working for me anymore, but is it worth jettisoning? Is it worth getting rid of? And the question that's sort of circling in everyone's mind, it's an impossible question to answer. People end up answering it, but it's how, what is happiness? What does it consist of? And how much of that do I have a right to? Mm-hmm. Is this marriage enough for me? Is this person enough for me? Now we need to start thinking about having a family. Is this the person I want to do it with? Do I feel good enough with this person? And I admire the people, I've come to admire people through the column, the people who repeatedly open themselves up to love after they've been sort of crushed.
Yeah.
And there are really two kinds of people in this world, and one is the kind, everyone gets crushed, at some point. And one is the kind who says, okay, I'm going to love again. And those people go on to have a happy life, whether they get crushed again, whether they have a horrible disease, whatever. Those are the people who are going to have a happy life. And the ones who say, I can't do that again, and go in the other direction and and decide, my heart can't take that. And I sort of have seen that split in submissions, a sort of bitterness versus openness. And if you can be on that right side of openness, you have a chance at a happy life. I'm not going to say you have it, but you have a chance.
So which side are you on? Asked Barbara Walters of The Journalist.
Which side am I on? I don't consider myself an incredibly brave person when it comes to love. I have a good marriage, and I feel like I'm happier than I have a right to be, considering how much struggle there is in the world. But I don't know. I have a new view of sort of what marriage is. I've been married 25 years and have 2 kids and see them go through relationships and all of that. And I've sort of come to appreciate what kindness and generosity can do over the long term versus our sort of obsession with love and romance, which are, I don't know, I see so many stories of people who divorce or break up because they don't feel in love anymore. They say, I don't feel in love anymore. And you just wonder, like, what is valuable, over the long term in relationships? What is valuable, and what do you cherish? And I'm fascinated by people who struggle with those questions.
Yeah. Could you see yourself to rekindle the passion coming to an Intelligence Squared debate to sort of get things fired up?
What are you asking, really?
I'm not asking you out. I mean, I just want to share. We've had some. We've had people connect romantically by coming to these debates.
I believe it.
And we had one marriage result. Actually, 2. A few years ago, in 2014, I got an email from a guy in Denver named Ryan, who wrote and said, my girlfriend and I have been listening to your debates, and we were having a lot of disagreements that were keeping us apart, but listening to your debates let us sort out what we believe about things and to learn to respect the differences with each other. And now I think I'm ready to pop the question. And he said, would you mind recording a mock introduction to a debate? Saying, he wanted my voice saying, ladies and gentlemen, here's our debate. Nicole should take Ryan's hand in marriage, or something like that. So I stood on the stage in front of the audience that night, and I read, Nicole, and then the whole audience burst into applause. And I send the audio file out to him, and 4 years ago he played it in the kitchen while Nicole was making dinner, and then he got down on his knees and proposed to her. And I checked in with him this weekend. I checked in with him this weekend, and I said, "How's it going?" And he said, "We're getting married this summer." So they've been together during those 4 years.
So John will do that for you.
Yeah.
Now that he'll record your voicemail message too. Probably.
And we're very interested in these topics that kind of mix technology and the human spirit. We've debated the impact of technology on the way we think, on whether it makes us smarter, whether video games make us smarter, artificial intelligence and jobs. So tonight's entrance in this category of teledating, we think, is really on target for us. But to get back to a couple of other insights from your book that I just found fascinating, and your book, by the way, is called Love Illuminated, Exploring Life's Most Mystifying Subject. I loved it. I wasn't sure I was going to like it. I'll do this on the phone. I really love this book because first of all, you're a fantastic writer. So many people are competing to get into your column. I'm thinking, who's the guy who's judging all of these writers? You got the right. First of all those pieces are really well written,
John.
but your
Nice
writing
of you
is
to say.
fantastic. But you mentioned that men are 3 times more likely to declare themselves in love before sex, and that this was a study done at Penn State. Do you recall that?
Yeah.
So what's that about?
That surprised me. Well, it didn't surprise me once I knew why. It was a study about who says "I love you" first in relationships, and I just, I assumed it would be very sexist of me, but I assumed it would be the women who would get emotionally involved before the man, and maybe they do. But the person who says "I love you" first is the man, more commonly, 3 times more commonly, I think. And he says it before sex. So there's sort of a motive to saying it. I mean, I don't dispute its sincerity in the moment.
At the time.
In the moment.
Yes.
And then women are much more likely to say "I love you" after sex, at which point the man is less likely to reciprocate.
If he's still in the room.
Awake, yeah.
Yeah. So that's unfortunately a very cynical take on the words "I love you."
I know.
You also talk
shouldn't
about
go there tonight.
Let's not. You also talk about the accidental "I love you" when one person blurts out "I love you" not meaning to, and then it lands and becomes often unreciprocated. I recommend the book just for these couple of pages because this is a brilliant story.
Well, it's true. I mean, but again, we're so guarded, and it's funny how "I love you" has become this sort of threshold. Like saying these words. Like in some cultures, you don't even say "I love you" ever, and for us, it's so loaded. And then my favorite of stories that have come my way, many of which actually are about this exact issue. How do you say "I love you"? What does a person say in response? And the classic responses are like, "Thanks." "I love you." After all this build up, "I love you. Thanks." You imagine?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. Well, I said at the beginning that having Daniel Jones was really a catch. You are a catch, and you've helped set up this conversation spectacularly well. The book, again, Love Illuminated, and the column, you all know Modern Love. You all have your stories. So far, 80,000. We've got another several hundred here of people who can write in and tell their stories. But I want to thank you. I want to thank you so much for taking the time and for helping us set
Thanks,
the table
John.
this way. Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Jones.
Thanks. My pleasure.
And now let's please welcome our debaters to the stage, starting with Tom Jakes. Helen Fisher. Thank you. Manoush Zomorodi. Hi. And Eric Klinenberg. Let's all take our places. Folks, you are doing so well in the applause department that I really appreciate that I'm not even asking for the applause. It's coming perfectly, so you get it. And the nice thing is afterwards, when this podcast exists for a million years, anytime for the rest of your life, you can turn on the podcast and hear your own applause. And I've done that. Our motion is swipe left, dating apps have killed romance. Let's meet our debaters. Please, again, welcome Eric Klinenberg. Hi, Eric. Welcome to Intelligence Squared. You are a professor at New York University. You're co-author of the bestseller Modern Romance. Your field is sociology, and that's a field that has been looking at mating rituals for as long as anyone can really remember. And tonight we're debating the impact of dating apps on people, but how have these apps changed sociology itself?
So far, they haven't really changed sociology, but it is inevitable that they're going to, and there's a very simple reason for that, and that is that the things we do on apps are recorded by the companies that make them, and we can turn that into data that we learn to discover all kinds of things about our secrets, the things we do. And I should actually say that is just one of the many unromantic things about dating apps.
Okay,
our intimate life is their data.
You can't slip it in there. Eric Klinenberg. Trying to slip one by us. And Eric's partner is, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome again, Manoush Zomorodi. Hi, Manoush.
Hi, John.
You host the Note to Self podcast that's known as the Tech Show about being human. Your recent book, Bored and Brilliant, also makes another sort of fascinating breakthrough argument that is based on new research. You report that we come up with some of our best and most creative thinking during periods when we are off of social media and just spacing out. Because that's when our minds get busy, you say, in interesting and creative ways. So given that, is the advice that you would give your opponents tonight, if they want to win this debate, that they should just space out now and then?
Yeah, I would say if they have not ignited the default mode in their brain and allowed their minds to wander towards brilliance, it's a little late, so...
But that doesn't mean they haven't done that already. Ladies and gentlemen, the team arguing for the motion. And now let's meet those opponents arguing against the motion. Swipe left, dating apps have killed romance. Please welcome Helen Fisher. Helen, we are delighted to have you on this stage. You've been to many debates as a member of the audience. It's great to have you up here. You are a biological anthropologist. You are the chief scientific advisor to Match.com, also a breakthrough thinker, notably your own work applying hard science to the study of love and romance with your fascinating insight that chemicals like dopamine and serotonin in our brains have a lot to do with who's going to match up well with whom. That's what your book, Anatomy of Love, is all about, which raises the question, which probably will come up tonight, are we stuck with the chemistry that we're born with?
We're not puppets on a string of DNA, that is for sure. We've evolved a huge cerebral cortex with which we make decisions. It's amazing we don't do it better, but we do. We have, although we are flexible, we have personalities that are based in biology, and we're naturally drawn to some people rather than others. So people are correct when they say we have chemistry.
Oh, lovely line. Ladies and gentlemen, Helen Fisher. And next in line is Tom Jakes. Welcome to Intelligence Squared, Tom.
Thank you.
Tom, you are Vice President of Engineering at Okcupid. That is a leading date site for anybody who might not know that. It boasts more than 3.5 million users. You, Tom, got your degree in computer science from Carnegie Mellon. And that makes you the numbers guy on the stage tonight more than anybody else. So being good with numbers,
Yes.
Can you please settle the most important mathematical question to have burdened sages and songwriters for generations? Is 1 the loneliest number?
So I love this question. So I think 1 certainly, is a lonely number, but like all questions, the context matters. So if we're talking about the number of relationships in the world, then 0 is the loneliest number because it means that everybody's alone.
Oh.
If you have, if you have 1, but you might have access to a dating app like Okcupid, you can quickly turn that into 2.
Okay. Also getting ahead of yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Jakes. Here they are, our 4 debaters, ready to get started when Intelligence Squared US continues. We'll be right back. And I want to remind you one more time, if you haven't voted yet, you can still vote for the next few minutes. If we're going to put the instructions back up on the screen. Go to open a web browser on your phone. Any of the browsers will work, iq2us.org/vote. And I'll just run you through it. You'll see yes, no, or undecided. And if you want to change your vote, you'll be prompted yes or no to go forward. It's for or against or undecided. And yes or no to move forward. If you like your selection, say yes. If you want to change your mind, say no. All right, everybody, we're going to move on. As always, our debate goes in 3 rounds. And it's the difference between the first and the second votes that declares our winners, and only one side wins. Let's move on to round 1. Our motion is this: swipe left. Dating apps have killed romance. Speaking first for the motion and making his way to the intelligence square there on the floor, Eric Klinenberg. He is sociologist and co-author of the book Modern Romance. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Klinenberg.
Thank you very much. You heard I'm a sociologist. I love sociology. I can't stop doing it, so I thought, let's start tonight by getting to know each other a little bit. I'm going to do an old-fashioned instant survey to get us going. So let me just ask, how many people in this room, can you clap, please, if you have never done online dating, if you've never used an online? No? This is the National Public Radio crowd here tonight. And can you also clap loudly if you have used a dating app? All right. All right. We have a future. Can you clap if you're single? Whoa. Special reception for you after the debate tonight. Clap if you're married, please. Okay. Somewhat disturbing. And just finally, if you could clap if you're currently in an extramarital relationship. Whoa. Ashley Madison, a dating app that is not dead yet. So look, I have spent years studying modern love and romance. I have traveled around the world doing interviews and focus groups with people who are single. I have studied the data that come from dating companies, and I can tell you that it's true. Millions of people are using dating apps, and many are finding relationships. But we are here not to talk about the numbers so much as to talk about the experience. And let me tell you that the experiences of people who use dating apps are anything but romantic. And let's remember why we're here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Our question is not, are dating apps popular? They are. We concede that. It's whether dating apps are bad for romance. And Manoush and I tonight are going to tell you why they are. But before we can do that, let's define the term. What is romance? Let's go to the Oxford English Dictionary, a great source for this. It tells us that romance is this kind of feeling of mystery and wonder. Helen has written about this, that we get around love. But there's something else in the definition that's important to me. It's this sense of being swept away, remote from reality, away from everyday life. It's that sense of being preoccupied with some other person. You think about them and care about them so much that everything else kind of melts away. You forget about the mundane. That's the feeling that we try to recapture when we go on vacation, or when we go on a date, or when we make a meal for our special person, right? It's that idea that we're lost in love. There's not another care we have in the world. Now, it is worth noting that since the advent of the internet, marriage rates have gone down. There are more people in the world who are single today than ever before. There are more people who are living alone. Still, I think that most people who are looking for love are able to find it, and technology won't change that. The thing is that dating apps are making just about every part of our search for love less romantic. Think about it. If you've been on a dating app, you know that it encourages you to treat people like products. People routinely lie about their height, their age, their weight, their income. They put huge amounts of attention into their photograph, and for good reason. About 90% of the action online dating is about the quality of your picture. Are you hot or not? 90%. But then we send out heartless and sometimes cruel messages, things we would never say to a person in person, because the phones encourages us to treat people like bubbles on a screen. Unfortunately, the things that we do online are changing the culture. My fellow sociologists say that they're changing our norms, making us ruder and flakier and more self-involved. Have you taken a selfie recently? Here's the most important thing. Dating apps make it harder, not easier, to be swept away by another person. Why is that? Because the phone demands our attention. It is always telling us that there's something or someone that deserves our attention more than the person we're with or the thing we're doing now. That's true for new couples, but it's also true for established couples as well. I mean, think about it. How often have you come home at night, if you're in a couple, looking for affection and connection, only to find your partner cuddled up on the couch with his iPhone? How romantic is that? Real life and real relationships have a hard time competing with the stimulation that apps give us. On dating apps, the problem is there's too much going on. Today, people go into their phones and they perceive a world of limitless dating choices. And unfortunately, this means it's very hard to settle on the person that we're with. We're always wondering, isn't there something better out there? Let's go online and find out. I have interviewed people who are on Tinder while in an Uber on their way to a date that they organized on Tinder hours before. And this matters because romance and love don't come from superficial connections. It's not really about whether you're hot or not. At the end of the day, romance is impossible without sustained face-to-face contact. What's important is not the quantity of our dates, it's the quality of our interactions. And the main reason that you should vote for the motion tonight is because apps and the phone culture that they're part of have made spending quality time with another human being a very hard thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric Klinenberg. Our motion again, swipe left, dating apps have killed romance. And here to make his opening statement against the motion, Tom Jakes, Vice President of Engineering at Okcupid. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Jakes.
Thank you very much, John. I really appreciate the opportunity to come out here tonight to debate. So I usually don't do media or public speaking things like most people. It terrifies me. And being a programmer, I'm more likely to talk to a computer than another human being. But you know, even though I'm not going to be as eloquent as Eric just was, I'm going to do my best. So, hello, everybody. My name is Tom. Hello. So I grew up in a small town of Wayland, Massachusetts, and I attended Carnegie Mellon University, where I graduated with a degree in computer science, as John just told you. And you know, after graduating, I moved to New York to join this crazy startup called Okcupid that was trying to use the internet to help people find love. And you know, working on a dating app, you know, let me tell you some of my interests. I love to travel, love candlelit dinners, long walks on the beach, and writing algorithms. So I care a lot about the topic of dating apps and romance. You know, it's literally what I've spent the last 8 years of my life thinking about every single day. And I may not look like a traditional matchmaker, but today, you know, as Eric told you, I am the typical matchmaker because, you know, dating apps are the most common way to meet people now. And today, you know, I'm going to show you that instead of killing romance, the data actually shows that dating apps are creating romance. And even though Eric didn't want to talk about the numbers, I do. So you're hearing things from him about bad behavior, having too many options, you know, arbitrary, irrelevant algorithms, which I take offense to. You know, but what you won't hear is, you know, them citing a number of studies that prove their point, because the data isn't there in the context of dating. So I've got three main points that I want to get across tonight. The first point is that more and more people are using dating apps to get together. Since building momentum in 1995, when the first dating apps started coming about, there's been a steady increase in the percent of couples that are using dating apps to get together. This is especially true for people who were marginalized before, the handicapped, the LGBTQI community, and people over the age of 55. So as a quick question to the audience, and remember, it's radio, so make a lot of noise. Who knows somebody who's in a relationship because of a dating app? It's a lot of people. Turns out, you're not alone. A number of studies estimate that over 40% of relationships today come from meeting on a dating app, and over 70% of LGBTQI relationships do. A recent study called The Strength of Apps and Ties that got global attention in 2017 say that we're actually seeing an unprecedented rise in the number of interracial marriages. And this sharp rise in interracial marriages correlates exactly to moments when popular dating apps were released, things like Match.com, Okcupid, and Tinder. This is what dating apps do. They break down barriers and allow you to connect, form relationships, and get married to people who you might otherwise never had the chance to meet. What isn't romantic about that? So my second point is that it's working. Not only are people getting together, they're staying together and they're happy. Studies have shown that married couples who met online report higher marital satisfaction and have a lower rate of breaking up than couples who met offline. And you might be thinking, all right, so what? Anybody can cite a study that makes them look good, right? Well, let's talk about something that you can't fake, more data. Turns out that because marriages are registered with the government in the United States, the CDC happens to track marriage and divorce rates. Don't ask me why the CDC thinks that marriage is a disease. Don't know the answer to that one, but they've got the numbers. According to them, marriage has been steadily declining in the United States since the 80s. And this trend only began to change in 2009, where it started to bottom out, and it's actually started to rise again. If you take a look at divorces, and specifically the rate of divorces per marriage, that's a trend line that's been going up over time. People have been getting divorced more and more. But that trend also reversed in 2010. It's actually come back down to one of the lowest points in the last 20 years. So now, correlation doesn't imply causation. How could these negative trends have been reversed during the rise of dating apps? It's a hard pill to swallow. So my last point is this. If dating apps have killed romance, where's the body? I looked everywhere. I couldn't find one. Qualitatively, people don't think that dating apps are killing romance. Pew Research surveyed 55% of people who don't use dating apps think that they're good. Of people who do use them, 80% think that they're a good way to meet people. Quantitatively, people are still forming relationships and getting together. Again, over 40% of relationships today and over a third of marriages due to dating apps. And, if this stuff didn't work, I wouldn't have a job. Dating apps aren't killing romance. They're making romance possible. And because of that, I ask you to vote no on the motion.
Thank you, Tom Jakes. And a reminder of where we are halfway through the opening round of this Intelligence Squared U.S. debate. I'm John Donvan. We have 4 debaters, 2 teams of 2, fighting it out over this motion, swipe left, dating apps have killed romance. You have heard from the first 2 debaters, and now on to the third. To debate in support of the motion, here is Manoush Zomorodi, host of WNYC's Note to Self podcast, author of Bored and Brilliant. Ladies and gentlemen, Manoush Zomorodi.
I have the least degrees of anyone on this stage. I am not an anthropologist. I am not a sociologist. I am not a data scientist. I'm a mom of 2 kids. I'm a wife. I'm a journalist, and I host a podcast that is about how technology is changing everything in our lives. And my audience is extremely generous. Every day we get emails and voice memos about how technology is specifically changing the way that they work, the way that they parent, the way that they fall in love. And oftentimes they are looking for guidance on how to cope with this accelerating world. And so that is what I hope to offer them on this podcast. But when I told them that I was going to be doing this debate tonight, they had a message for you. In fact, they had a few things that they wanted you to know about their experiences on these dating apps. Some simply wanted to share the messages that they had exchanged with potential suitors. I'm going to read a few to you. And tell me if this would spark online romance for you. Hey! No, that's it. Just hey. Nice legs, even if you don't shave them. Yeah, those weren't too bad. Can I read you my favorite? I'm looking to shove my head between your legs and bend you over. What are you looking for? I know. My kids aren't listening. I just want you to know that. To be fair, several of my listeners did say that they eventually did meet a special someone with the help of an online dating site. But like anyone who has spent time on these apps, they first had to run the gauntlet of lewd messages or spent time exchanging messages with people who seemed really interested, but then just seemed to disappear from their screens. One person wrote me, all the apps have bots of beautiful people who seem amazing and educated and hot and available and who will engage you for a few sessions, but then they ghost you. Okay, but let's say, yeah, exactly. But let's say you do make a connection. Okay, well, let's say positive. Let's say you make a connection with a person, a real person, with the help of an app, and you go on an actual date. Then what? So many people told me that the transactional quality of their experience on these apps just seeps over into real life. Chrissy wrote me, I have come to despise that look a man gives you when you first meet. The gleam in their eye, the smirk. It makes me shudder. Immediately, I have to decide how hard I'm going to push to split the bill because clearly they think they're buying something. Ew. But at least that guy showed up. Listen to this story about a dude who really used one of these apps to manipulate people. Clip 1.
He was on Match.com, and he told me it was his type of porn. So he told me that what he liked to do was start relationships with women and get to the point where it was going to be their first meeting. And I guess that was like the most exciting, fun part for him, as it is for most people. And then he would set up a time and place for them to finally meet for the first time, and then he wouldn't show up. And he would do it over and over and over again.
And that guy was actually her boyfriend at the time. And he broke up with her by posting a picture of himself on Instagram with his new fiance. Good times. Okay, now listen, have I shared with you the worst aspects of online dating? Maybe. And maybe you're thinking like, oh my God, if it's so terrible, just don't do it, right? But here is the problem. The destruction of romance extends IRL into real life. Even if you give up finding romance online and you decide to look for love the old-fashioned way in a bar, this is what you will find. Clip 2.
Yeah, so I walked into this bar, kind of excited to see if I could connect with a guy. And I looked around, and every single guy at the bar was on their phone on dating apps. Every single one. I got to the point where I realized I should just get on the dating apps and see if any of them were actually on it. But there's no point in interacting.
No point in interacting, much less exchanging glances over a pint of Brooklyn Lager. Are you feeling tired? Are you exhausted by all these stories? Are you thinking, oh my God, this is so draining, especially for women? Yeah. Well, you're not alone. Here's Becca.
It's just very exhausting. Like, online dating is very exhausting. And, like, obviously not opposed to meeting someone in real life. It's just, like, for me personally, I don't know where the I would meet anyone in real life.
My teammate told you how dating apps have destroyed romance. They've taken away mystery, remoteness. But I want to add that dating apps have destroyed another important aspect of romance: civility and conversation. Basic emotional intelligence, eye contact, being able to read someone's body language and make them think, like act your best, like your best self, make them think that you are just amazing and they are the most special person in the world, at least until you get to know each other, right? Look, we all know the internet is extraordinary. Information goes around so quickly. We are connecting people all over the world. But is it good for romance? No. When human beings interact online, they often revert to their crudest instincts. Dating apps are no different, and certainly not better. Give me a Twitter where people punctuate properly and treat each other with respect, and I will grant you a dating app that brings out people's most caring, loving, and romantic selves. Not gonna happen. And this is why you should vote yes for me and Eric.
Thank you, Manir Samarodi. And the motion to vote on is swipe left. Dating apps have killed romance. And here to make her closing statement against the motion, Helen Fisher, biological anthropologist and chief scientific advisor to Match.com. Ladies and gentlemen, Helen Fisher.
Good evening. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm delighted that you're here. I do an annual study with Match.com called Singles in America. We do not poll the Match members. It's a demographically and national representative sample based on the U.S. Census. We've done it for the last 8 years, and we've got data on over 35,000 singles of every age and every background. And today, this past year, 6% of singles met somebody in a bar. I'm not surprised about that. 24% met through a friend, and 40% met somebody on the internet. Moreover, 57% think that online dating is a good way to meet people. Are they all crazy? Before we get into deep yogurt on this, into the weeds on this whole issue, I'd like to add a broader, more evolutionary, more anthropological perspective to apps, to romance, and to human nature. And I'm going to begin with a story. I was traveling in New Guinea, in the highlands of New Guinea, and I ran into a man who had 3 wives. And I asked him, how many wives would you like to have? And there was this long pause. And I thought to myself, is he going to say 5? Is he going to say 10? Is he going to say 25? And he turned to me and he said, none. A lot of wives can be a real toothache. We are a pair-bonding species. Even in polygynous societies, the vast majority of men and women pair up with one person at a time. And along with the evolution of human pair bonding millions of years ago, we evolved the brain circuitry for romance. I study this brain system of romantic love. I and my colleagues Lucy Brown, Bianca Acevedo, and others have put over 100 people into a brain scanner using fMRI to study the brain circuitry of romantic love. And we've been able to show that the main circuits lie way below the cortex where you do your thinking, way below the brain regions linked with the emotions, at the very base of the brain linked with drive. In this case, the drive to find life's greatest prize, which is a mating partner. In fact, this brain system lies right near the factories that orchestrate thirst and hunger. Thirst and hunger keep you alive today. Romantic love enables you to focus your mating energy on somebody else and pass your DNA on into tomorrow. This is a survival mechanism, and it will not die whether you swipe left or right on Tinder. In fact, if you're concerned about killing romance with apps, what about the automobile? In the 1950s, we suddenly had a rolling bedroom. What about the birth control pill in the 70s, or Viagra in 1998? Technology cannot change the basic brain structure of romance. Technology is changing the way we court, and you're going to hear more and more about that. In the past, people pulled up in their horse and buggy and wooed at the lunch on Sunday lunch. In my day, they called on the phone. Today, people email and text and meet and seek a mate on the internet with apps. It's just the newest way to do the same old thing. In fact, these really aren't even dating sites. They're introducing sites. The only real algorithm is your own brain. When you go out and meet the person, and you've got to meet the person, your own brain snaps into action, and you court the way you always have, smiling, laughing, listening, watching, parading, the way you did long before apps. In fact, romantic love is a little bit like a sleeping cat. 34% of singles have fallen in love at first sight. 45% have gone into a friends with benefits thinking it's just going to be a one-night stand, and it turned into a long-term committed relationship. And 89% of singles today believe that you can find when you find the right person, you can remain married for life. If that's not romance, I don't know what is. And I think they're looking in the right place. I did this study myself with Match, and I found that people who use internet to date have more education, are more fully employed, and more likely to want to marry. These sites certainly do have problems. But like any new technology, you've got to learn how to use it. And you've seen how people are not using it properly tonight. The biggest problem, and it was mentioned by Eric, is cognitive overload. The brain is not well built to choose between hundreds, if not thousands, of alternatives. So what I would recommend is that you stop. If you're a dating person, after you've met 9 people, the brain doesn't deal with more than about 9, stop and get to know one person more. And the more you get to know a person, the more you like him, and the more you think that that person is like you. Actually, I think romance is expanding due to something that I call slow love. Today, singles are taking different routes to love. Many of them are just hanging out for months before they even kiss. Others are working slowly into friends with benefits, then slowly into dating somebody. Dating has actually acquired a new significance, more important, and then slowly into living together before they marry. What we're seeing is a real extension of the pre-commitment stage before we tie the knot. Where marriage used to be the beginning of a relationship, now it's the finale. And we have even more time for romance. So, nobody gets out of love alive. You heard about some of these people. We all suffer on the internet and off the internet. As the poet William Butler Yeats once said, love is the crooked thing. It is. But I will close with this. The drive for romance and love is one of the most powerful brain systems the human animal has ever evolved. Apps have their problems, but apps cannot, never have, and never will kill the brain circuitry for romance. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen Fisher. And that concludes round 1 of this Intelligence Squared U.S. debate, where our motion is swipe left, dating apps have killed romance. So I want to remind you that tonight's debate is being broadcast worldwide on our website, iq2us.org, and on Facebook Live. If you're watching the live stream, we would also like to hear from you. Send us your questions on Twitter or Facebook with the hashtag IQ2USLive so that we don't miss it. And be sure to include at least your first name and your city and your state, or your country, in fact. Now we move on to round 2, and round 2 is where the debaters address one another directly, and they take questions from me and from you, our live audience here in New York City. Our motion is swipe left, dating apps have killed romance. We have heard the team arguing for the motion. Manoush Zomorodi and Eric Klinenberg argue that dating by apps is anything but romantic, that it makes it harder to be swept away when meeting another person or encountering another person, which they define as the essence of romance. They point out that the apps are a transactional activity whose quality is seeping into real life and destroying romance actually in real life, even in offline relationships, killing things like civility and decency. Dating apps making it just people ruder, and they use the word flakier. And basically, they also point out one of the principles I think is involved here is the problem of having too much choice, that when people know that they have always the opportunity to swipe for somebody else, they're always going to be looking for something better. So that's part of the argument being made by the team arguing for the motion. The team arguing against the motion, Helen Fisher and Tom Jakes, they say that data actually backs up the argument, their argument, that apps are aiding and abetting romance, that the numbers support their argument that there are people in the world getting together who otherwise would not be able to, including people in the disabled community, the LGBT community, where apps are, they say, responsible for 70% of relationships that have developed. They also say there's a correlation to a breaking down of all kinds of social barriers with the appearance of apps. Also going to the level of brain chemistry, that the brain circuitry of romantic love is too deeply etched in our brains to be dislodged by one generation of dating apps. They point out that time and time again, technology has been blamed for destroying romance, but it's always turned out to be a false alarm. They say it's a false alarm this time again. I want to go to the team arguing for the motion. Essentially, you're making a qualitative argument, I would say, primarily, and your opponents are making a quantitative argument. Let's take on their quantitative argument. They're basically pointing out that the numbers so strongly suggest that people are using these apps because they're working for them, that all by itself they win the debate. Public behavior wins the debate for them, that people are using these apps, and as you've already conceded, there have been many, many relationships developing out of them. Would you like to take that on, Eric?
By all means, because we would never concede that millions of people are using these apps. We just think that's a very poor way to measure their effect on romance. So let me ask you to consider, for instance, Facebook. Do you know that Americans get their news from Facebook like no other place? Ladies and gentlemen, would any single person in this room argue that Facebook is good for news or journalism or truth? Teenagers all over the world are using their smartphones to text each other incessantly. Are smartphones good for conversation? What are the most popular restaurants in the United States today? McDonald's, Burger King, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell. Are they good for nutrition? The idea that because people are using dating apps, which have crowded out so many other ways of getting together, my gosh, you go to the bar and you can't interact if you don't have a phone, it just doesn't sell.
Tom Jakes, let's respond to that. Your opponents are basically saying that dating apps like the one that you work for, they are the fast food of romance. And they're quite seriously arguing that it's coarsening the culture, and that anything that coarsens the culture can't be called romantic.
So I think that there are some fair points that are brought up, but one of those points that was brought up was, is Facebook good for news? Well, I'd actually say yes. I think Facebook and Twitter have been great for news. Facebook and Twitter allow people to get information more directly from the source. Dating apps allow you to expand your options and get down to the point of meeting people who you're actually going to talk with and connect with and get to know.
Manoush, so embedded in that response is also the argument that team is making that people who normally would not have the opportunity to meet are meeting. And definitely, I don't think you would even argue against the fact that communities like the disabled communities that would have been shut out before are now connecting. And again, that if romance is sparking in those situations in places it wouldn't before, and that supports their argument. What's your response?
Well, I think using this word romance as a journalist who doesn't believe that Facebook is good for news, and in fact it is destroying what has been held true in how we disseminate information, I would argue that when we say, for example, Helen says 70% say that online dating is a good way to meet people. That is not disputed. What we're talking about is romance. And that has all kinds of, you can't quantify romance. That is a moment where you have butterflies in your stomach or you meet. I'll give you an example of a young woman who told a story to me yesterday who said she met this guy and he ticked all her boxes, literally. He was a doctor, he was tall, he had brown hair, all those things. He even had a golden retriever. And she's like, it's happening. It's happening. I did it online. We're meeting. He's cool. It's 2 p.m. He's like, you want to go for a walk? Do you want to meet my golden retriever? She's like, yeah, I do. Well, that was code. And, meaning that she went back to his apartment and he was like, well, let's get into bed. She's like, I really just wanted to meet your dog. Like, that.
There was a dog, though.
There was a dog. There was a dog. But my point being that romance is subjective and numbers are not. So while we say 70% are meeting that way, that does not mean that romance is happening.
Let me take that response to Helen Fisher then. Your opponents are basically saying if we're going to be talking about romance, about this mysterious swept away thing, that's a different thing from numbers of introductions and even numbers of relationships that connect. I can see what they're saying there. So what's your response to that?
Well, it's interesting that they keep on talking about one individual here and one individual there, whereas we are talking about huge numbers of 40 million people. And thank you. And all of our data show that 1/3 of relationships, Manoush, relationships, start, on the internet, relationships, and that 1/5 of all marriages, there's romance in relationships, there's romance in marriages.
I think that people are beaten down. I mean, like when Tom says people are getting together and staying together, that's because they're too tired to move on, people. I mean, at some point you think, how much longer can I play this numbers game? Let's just call it, the game's over. And as someone who's been married for quite some time, some days there are romance, some days there are not. And I think what Eric actually has said to me that I found very fortifying is actually that romance that you have at the very beginning of a relationship bodes well for you down the road because it's a touch point that you can go back to. Thank you for that, Eric.
Just so that sociology doesn't get left out of here altogether, because we do have some numbers. So the book I wrote before I wrote Modern Romance is called Going Solo, and it is worth saying that there are more single people in the world than there have ever been before. There are more people who are living alone than there have ever been before. And that when I interviewed enormous numbers of people, and by the way, I have no self-interest in this. I have no company that's paying me to do this. I mean, the data is all about me being a scientist and trying to get things. Well, we should take that into consideration, because if it was 30 years ago...
Actually, if your suggestion is that they're shills for their companies, I just want to say in the spirit of Intelligence Squared, we strike that, because we actually want to hear the merits of the arguments that they have.
Sure, but here we have to be very careful. So if it was 30 years ago and we were debating whether cigarettes were bad for you, and the cigarette industry told us, here's our evidence, we would all say, well,
all right,
how do we judge that?
these are not cigarette people. I just want to...
So let me say, for the sake of science, that there's incredible disparity in the numbers that what we get from different sources.
Yes,
so with the Match.com data is different than the data that we get from other surveys. And for instance, let me just pick one bone for a moment here. The claim that the rise in interethnic marriage is coincident with the rise of online dating. This is not a claim that holds water. The preeminent researcher of this is Mike Rosenfeld from Stanford University. He's a dear colleague of mine. He wrote a book called The Age of Independence that I know well from my work, and it shows that the rise of intermarriage happens when young people start marrying later, get places of their own, and free themselves from parental control, and so therefore can make decisions about who they want to interact with, who they want to mate with, without that kind of pressure before. And so to say that this is about online dating is just plain wrong. We have to have
Eric,
the facts.
I just want to break in because this side has had quite a run. I want to let this side talk for a while now. Take it on.
Well, two things. First of all, I loved your book, Going Solo, but I think we used to agree, actually, that made people hyper-connected, because these days people write over 15,000 emails during the course of 1 year. We're hyper-connected. You can't walk down the street without dodging people because they're so busy connecting with everybody. So, this is not going solo doesn't necessarily mean that these people are sitting in their, that's number one.
No, just different
Number
from
two,
romance.
I wanted to talk about this interracial marriage, too, because I don't know if we're referring to the same article, but I was really moved by a particular article that really, there's two things that we actually do know that online dating is helping, and it is increasing more interracial marriages. And I say that because in this data of we have at Match, they have, I'm just a consultant, of 35,000 people. We ask what you're looking for every year. And the top things that people are looking for is somebody they respect, somebody they can trust and confide in, somebody who makes them laugh, somebody who makes them, gives them enough time, and somebody who they find physically attractive. And way down the road is ethnic background. Over 70% of singles today would go out with somebody from a different racial group.
Tom, I want to take give you a moment to build on the argument that you were making in the beginning about algorithms. You talked a lot about algorithms. The implication being, I believe the implication being that these algorithms are better than people at looking at a large group of people and figuring out who's going to be compatible. I think that's the basis of your business. And my question to you is, how do we know that that's really any better than if you just got a large group of people together and got them in contact with each other, that they would figure out their own matches? So that's a different question from it's a larger group of people. It's once you get that larger group of people, what does your algorithm know about dating and romance that the rest of us don't?
That's a great question, and I will answer that in 1 second, but I have to respond to Eric. Okay, I love that you brought up Michael Rosenfeld, because Michael Rosenfeld is actually quoted in a recent Huffington.
Is this about the interracial dating?
This is just for a second.
Well, no. The thing is, we have limited time. We've had 2 rounds on it. You're going to come back at each other with dueling studies. So I think we'll end up going in a circle. So
okay.
If you would not mind moving forward.
On to algorithms.
Thanks.
He said he sees no negative repercussions. So I think there's actually huge misunderstanding about these algorithms. You know, people like Manoush will say, what does hair color have to do with your soulmate? And Manoush is right, it has nothing to do with your soulmate. But we don't look at things like hair color or eye color or height or weight. We look at practical behavioral measurements. We look at who's online. If you go to a bar, the people that you see are the people in the bar with you. One of the most prominent features of the algorithms are that when you go online, you see people who are online with you too. It's the same kind of things that give you the opportunity to see who's responsive, who's open to actually meeting, who actually talks to each other. Those are the people who we promote, the people who you're going to have the best chance of having a good, positive interaction with. If you behave poorly, you get reported.
How do you know it's a positive interaction? Because I think there's a little bit of a sense that, well, that if both people like the same kind of music, then that's a thing that's going to help them get along. But, you know, maybe that assumption is wrong. Maybe opposites attract in a lot of ways. How do you account for the possibility of opposites attracting?
So one way that we account for it is we actually don't filter out all sorts of people just because they disagreed with you on one thing. What we do is we present to you the people who are available, and we try and show you things that you can use to connect. Well, it turns out that you happen to agree that Thundercats was the greatest thing of all time as a child, right?
But maybe 2 such people should not be allowed to be together.
We're going to concede all the Thundercats couples. Give them to
They're very romantic.
But, you know, we aren't making those decisions for you. We're just showing you what you have in common with people.
Okay, so I want to let Manoush take that on.
And you, of course, are speaking for your company. I had the pleasure the other night of sitting on the couch with a single female relative who was like, you want to see what it's like? I'll show you what it's like. And we got on Bumble. And let me tell you, it was like, oh, look at his face is that's weird the way his ear is, no, gone. Oh, look, he's a little bit, I don't know, his smile's weird. Goodbye. Nobody is looking at whether there's Thundercats or they like interacting or anything like that. In fact, she told me that she had gotten more matches or whatever they call it on Bumble when she had nothing written in her profile. It was based on her looking super cute.
But if you look at what Tom's company is doing, Okcupid, they're not doing just 1 or 2 variables like that. They're going into a lot of data and then running it through an algorithm and then saying these two people will probably be a good match.
John, the motion, dating apps. There's a whole wide spectrum out there.
Right. So let's have a response to the point that he made.
Well,
you're doing a pivot, very smart, but But I'd like you to pivot back to the point that he made about the algorithm actually being good at matching people up.
But can we just go back to the thing that Helen said, which I think is kind of brilliant, but there's something a little off about it. It's that Helen, who believes in these dating sites, will always tell us, your brain is the best algorithm, right? Get off the sites. Get face-to-face. We completely agree on this. Your brain is the best algorithm. People, your brain is not an algorithm. Your brain is something else. There's something else going on with you as a whole person. And I think we make a mistake in thinking that we can game this, that we can get this right quantitatively, that there's a model, because you don't really know until you're with that other person whether you have a spark. And the other thing is, it doesn't happen in 10 minutes. We know from the best research that the way to get at what is really distinctive and human and special about another person is to spend time with them. Go on a second date. Go on a
But
third
they're not
date.
disputing.
Give them
They're
a
not
chance.
disputing the value of subsequent dates, and you're not responding
No,
to the question of whether the algorithm is better than we are.
But I am, because what I'm saying, and Minush is saying this also, is we are actually filtering in a very different way, which has to do with images, and we wind up making decisions that don't give us a chance. So over time, over years, are people going to still procreate and find couples? I think we can see the evidence that our species has not died off yet. But is this good for romance?
Right. Is this good
We
for
don't
romance?
think so.
Okay, I want to go to audience questions in just a moment. The way that will work, I'll remind you, I'm not going to be able to call on people upstairs, but if you're downstairs, raise your hand and I will call on you. Please wait for a microphone to come to you. Tell us your name, stand up, and ask a very short question. But I want to let Helen respond, if you would like to what was just said. Otherwise, we can move on to the other.
Very briefly,
Yeah.
I entirely agree, and I ended up saying on the podium that these are not dating sites, they are introducing sites. And there's one of the fastest growing one is called Our Time. It's for people over 50. I'm over 50. I can't stand in a bar and wait for people to walk by. It's not going to happen to me.
Okay, let's go to some questions. I see an orange sweater. And if you could stand up and, again, please tell us your name. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Meredith.
Hi.
And my question is for, I guess, for the four people. I find that I'm a very bad judge of people that I'm in potential romantic relationships with because I self-rationalize as soon as I'm attracted to people. And I just want to have sex with them, and then I end up getting in a relationship with them by mistake. How would you respond to that point, that perhaps meeting somebody on an app is better because you don't actually get to smell them and stuff?
Thank you for that question. That's for this side, right?
No, I'm with you. Okay, so can I share?
Introduce
This
them
maybe
already.
is familiar. A friend told me the story last night. I had a great night hearing all these stories last night. That she thought that she'd met some guy that she was really into on Okcupid, and actually they decided to have sex, and they went out for brunch the next morning, and she's thinking, he smells right, all those things, right? And she goes home and she gets on her laptop and she looks on her laptop and she says, oh, wait, this is not my Okcupid account. Oh, it's Wayne's Okcupid account. And, oh, shit. While we're having sex, I went into the bathroom and he got on Okcupid and set up another date with someone. And then she also saw all the messages that he had sent to other guys saying that she was so easy and what a great time he was having. And
Okay, I see where that's going. Let's let your opponents respond to some of that. Tom Jakes.
So, first of all, I'd like to see those messages. I'd like to see that account. I'm not sure that they.
We know you can, man. We know you can. But again, what Minush has been talking about again and again is bad behavior. And are these one-off examples of, again, truly bad behavior, people behaving very poorly. But when you have millions of people using these dating apps to get together, there's a very deep barrel, and you can pull out some really nasty stories from the bottom. But that doesn't mean that the typical experience isn't a good one. Can I just...
very quick question. Very quick response.
Yeah, just another quick sociological survey. People here who've been online dating, can you applaud women, especially if you've been dating online? When Manoush tells stories about these kinds of experiences and messages, will you clap if they ring a bell?
I'm going to move on to another question. I just want to compliment that question as being very short, very interesting, and actually related to the dating app part of it and being a question. So that's the model.
Well done, Meredith.
We are swiping right on you all over this room.
Right down here. Yeah, you're the only person, the nearest person. If you could stand up again, please. Thanks, if you don't mind.
Hi, I'm Willa. I'm from New York. I'm really curious, given your statements about how dating apps are introduction tools. And I know that as a young single person who has dabbled in the dating app world, sometimes I will see people who I know from real life. And sometimes there are people who I do like from real life, and then other times there are people who I really don't like from real life, like a childhood bully, or someone who I work with and we don't get along well, or, you know, I'm really curious to hear about what happens to our behavior when we see people who we have already been introduced to when we get on these apps. What happens psychologically? What happens in our behavior?
That's a little bit more specific than the topic we're discussing, but I'm kind of really interested to hear the answer. So I would normally say let's pass on it, but what's your take on that?
Oh, I want to do an episode on that. Totally. My executive producer is here, so we'll talk after.
Helen.
And I just swipe left is what I do.
Hi, I'm Amelia. I'm from Colorado. So I think that one of the themes that I'm picking up on here is that there's this idea that part of romance is maybe like figuring out if another person is interested in you. So that's maybe the appeal of like what you guys were saying, going to a bar and like, oh, are we looking at each other?
Do you buy that? I just want to check.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, you got them. Yeah.
So I guess like my question is, how is it less romantic intrinsically to meet with somebody who you already know is attracted to you?
Because of the app. Okay.
Through an app.
So again, I can just say from doing interviews with people all over the world that when people connect face to face, most of the time it's a miss. And it's hard to know who you're going to be attracted to in real life, in part because the pictures that we put up of ourselves don't really tell the real truth about us. I mean, if there's anything, you know, I do sociology, not advice, but if I could give you one piece of advice, if you're thinking about doing online after tonight, it's don't believe what you see and read. Wait until you meet the person, because the truth is, most of the time, you're not getting what you expect.
Helen?
I would just answer the question directly and say that the data show that when you know that somebody is in love with you, it makes you like them more.
That seems quite intuitive. Right down. Yes. If you could stand up, please. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Ethel from New York. I want to know why the con artists from the third world are the most romantic men on dating apps. And I want to know if I can figure out that these men are con artists from the third world because they don't know, they only know the metric system, so they write down that they're 4 feet tall. How come these people aren't screened out and gotten rid of?
I missed the last.
Sounds like a question for me.
Why aren't they screened out?
It's a great question. So again, like this is something that I've dealt with, you know, every day for the last 8 years of my life, and I've actually spent an extremely long period of time over the last year really delving into how can we better deal with spammers and scammers like the ones that you're describing. And you know, I do think that it's a big deal, and I do think that those types of scammers tend to try to prey on the elderly because, again, they are a vulnerable class of people that don't have other mechanisms of meeting people. And so what we do is we actually pay very close attention to that. We take a look at, you know, where are you signing up from? Are you signing up from some third world country in Africa claiming to be in the United States? All sorts of things like this. And really at the end of the day, what you're describing is a very serious problem that we pay a lot of attention to, and we've reduced the number of complaints that we've had by over 90% in the last year of things like that. But at the end of the day, that's an economic problem. It's not a romantic one.
I want to let the other side respond to that.
I just want to raise a
Klinenberg.
flag for me about the way we're talking about the third world and people from other countries, and to say that, again, we debated the interethnic marriage thing, but can we say that the way I learned about how rampant discrimination is in online dating is from the Okcupid research site that Christian Rudder maintained, where he documented so thoroughly the penalty you pay for being African American, or from being an Asian man, or from being perceived as third world on these sites. To think that discrimination disappears because we now have a chance to meet other people, I think is off base. And just listen to the conversation if you want to be concerned about the persistence of these problems in the world online.
That was quite a gauntlet, so if you'd like to respond, either of you.
Well, all of our data shows that more and more people, in my data of 35,000 people, it was way down the list of what you were looking for in a partner. 70% of singles on these dating apps would go out with somebody from a different race.
But can we geek out for 1 second here to say that it's
You don't
not
think
about
we're
what
geeking out, so
I'm going to go a little deeper, because, as you've said repeatedly, it is not about what we say we're interested on a survey. It's what we reveal when we act online. And if the data tell us that African American women get 3/4 of the affection and attention of all the other groups online, and that an Asian man would have to earn an additional $247,000 to stand on equal footing with his white counterpart, that's important information that we get from looking at people's revealed preferences through their behavior. Take the survey with a grain of salt.
Can I respond?
Yes.
Yeah.
Come, Jake.
So I'd just like to point out that Eric is citing us. We're the people talking about this. We recognize that these things are problems. And again, this is the type of thing that I spend every day trying to make better. And guess what? It is getting better. People are more willing and more willing over time to reach out to these people. That doesn't mean that discrimination disappears overnight, but because there's more exposure to different people of different backgrounds, that's how we get to know each other and bridge those gaps.
Front row here. Right down in the center, and the mic's coming from your left-hand side.
So I'll state the question would be, to your point, that
Do you mind saying us and tell us your name?
A dating app is quantity.
What's your name?
Tiffany.
Thanks.
So a dating app clearly is quantity, so there are going to be more people that can connect. But it's about the romance in the quantity that are connecting. To your point, there are complications, there are problems, and because there's a huge quantity base, people are not happy.
Do you have a question?
I do have a question. So my question is how would you say that there's romance when there's all of these people that are constantly being disappointed because there's so much quantity and they're being punched left and right to be brought to someone's house to have sex or this or that, all this stuff that comes in. So how would you say that that's romantic? It's so huge.
No, you landed it, so thanks. No, really, you're good. Thanks. Helen, do you want to take that?
Oh, no, you can take it. It's about...
How can all that nastiness be anything suggestive of romance? And it's basically the same argument your opponents are making. They're looking at many, many incidents of nasty behavior, and they're saying that's not romantic, therefore they win. But so
it'd be nice if arguments worked that way. So your point is that there's so many options, people are talking to you all over the place, and that's not romantic, right? I'd kind of counter two ways. One is that what about the people who don't have any other options? The people who are scared to go out, maybe they're not openly gay, and this is a mechanism where they can use these apps to actually meet people that they don't otherwise have, right? Now, that doesn't mean that your point isn't a valid one, right? Like, there's a lot of attention, but, what happens if you go outside to the bar? You're going to meet tons of people anyway. Like, one of the main complaints that women have when they go out is that people are hitting on them, giving them unwanted attention, and they don't have, the power, the mechanisms to just make those people go away. Well, guess what? Dating apps let you just swipe those problems away.
Here's one from YouTube. This is a question for the. I'm sorry, Helen. Did you want to?
Oh, I just wanted to wonder why you thought the nastiness was just on apps. I mean, all you got to do is read fiction.
Wait, there you go, John. Can we?
Are you?
I'm done.
Oh, I thought you were on a roll. Okay.
I think just so our side can respond to this question, which I think is about the kind of general.
I felt like, honestly, I felt like she was like making your.
Yeah,
argument.
I thought so too.
Yeah. So I don't think we need to nail it.
Well, if Manoush says so, I am definitely going
okay.
to listen to that.
So we have a question from YouTube, and this is for the 4 team, so it's your turn. If the dating apps are killing romance by promoting superficial judgments, for example, swipe left, right, based on a picture, how's that different from meeting in real life? We do not generally approach people who are unattractive to us.
Should I
Manoush.
All right. Total confession. When I first met my now husband, I just, he didn't do anything for me, at all. It was a work situation, and then we ended up talking, and then he was really funny, and then he had the weird smell thing, like Meredith was talking about, he smelled right. And we never would have been matched by a dating site. We argue about religion constantly, but we have 2 beautiful children, and most of the time we're really into each other. So I just think that there's something to be said that we're talking about an industry that is $2.7 billion a year, and it wants to grow, right? So it makes sense that it wants you to think there's amazing people on there, and they're gorgeous, and they're just like me, or they're different, but we're compatible anyway. Look around. One woman told me that her son made a match, and she was so happy, but the irony was that the woman worked in the same building as him. So if they had just looked up from their phones, maybe they would have seen each other.
I'd like to let the other side respond to that.
I don't have enough response.
Okay. I'll take a quick response.
Oh, all right, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I actually think that your point right there is a fantastic one for dating apps. These people were in the same building, and they never met until they used a dating app.
I think we have time for one more, and somebody holding up our program. That's a very good way to get my attention. It worked.
Hi, I'm Candace. I think romance, the definition of it has changed over time. I'm sure once it was how many sheep you were willing to offer for somebody's hand in marriage. A few decades ago, it was, showing up with flowers. How do you guys define romance now? Because I feel like it's something you haven't actually expressed your view what romance actually is to you. It seems like the side against the agenda here is
I think the foresight has told us what romance is. They said very clearly it's being swept away and wrapped up. So you were really asking what's the definition of romance being used by the against. I think it's a fair question. So why don't you take a crack at that, Helen?
I've studied that for years. The first thing that happens when you fall in love is a person takes on what we call special meaning. Everything about them becomes special. The car that they drive is different from every other car in the parking lot, the street they live on, the music that they like. Then you focus on them. Elation when things are going well. Mood swings into horrible despair when things are going poorly. Focusing on them. Elation, possessiveness, butterflies in the stomach, a dry mouth when you're talking to them. But the 3 main you want to have sex with them, but what you really want them to do is to call, to write, to ask you out, and to tell you that they love you. You want that emotional union. It's even more important than sexual union. And the obsessive thinking. Before we put people in the brain scanners, the one most important question that I would ask them is, what percentage of the day and night do you think about this person? And they would say, I never stop thinking about her. That is romantic love. It's a very specific constellation of personality traits. Times change. We bring flowers now. These days, don't forget the flowers. Just leave your cell phone in your pocket and you'll do a lot better on a first date. But anyway, it's a very distinct distinct characteristics of romantic love. We know what's happening in the brain. Times have changed. We've got something now which is called culture lag. Our definition of what romance is changing faster than our understanding and our expectations.
I can let the other side have one final word if you would like, or do you just want to say that was pretty beautiful?
No, that was lovely. I'm in love with Helen right now, actually. But like I don't think we're disagreeing about that. But I think it comes back to the motion, which is about how difficult dating apps are making it to get to that point that you have to deal with all the extremely unromantic, difficult behavior, whether it's rating people by what they look or dealing with extremely rude, racist, sexist comments. It's a tough road to get to this wonderful thing that you're describing. So I think we all love each other on stage, but I think we disagree about the road that we get to.
Then let me call it. That's the end of round 2 of this Intelligence Squared U.S. debate, where our motion is swipe left. Dating apps have killed romance. And now we move on to round 3. Round 3 will be brief closing statements by each debater in turn. Those statements will be 2 minutes each. The debaters will stand up one last time to make their closing statements. And here to begin that round, to make her closing statement in support of the motion, Manoush Zomorodi, host and managing editor of WNYC's Note to Self.
I stand up, right?
Yes, you do.
On the square. Okay, so I just mentioned $2.7 billion that we're talking about with these dating apps. But as you have seen from the headlines, Silicon Valley's utopian belief that tech is always a force for good is being tested. We're seeing it be tested from a consumer perspective, from a civic perspective, from an economic perspective, and tonight, I think from a romantic perspective. We're living in this age of self-experimentation. And I think we have to be able to say, no, this isn't working. This is gross a lot of the time. We don't feel good about ourselves. A lot of the emotion that I saw in some of the people standing up to ask questions is very real. Maybe the data doesn't show it, but the stories are extremely important. And Silicon Valley needs to listen more closely to the people that they're peddling their wares to. So let's let the companies know. Apps are killing romance. We need to see change. Humans can now conveniently order their groceries online. You can, with a tap, order up a car. But you should not be summoning romance through an app. The motion is right. Vote yes to the motion.
Thank you, Manoush Zomorodi. And that motion again, swipe left. Dating apps have killed romance. Here making her closing statement against the motion, Helen Fisher, biological anthropologist and chief scientific advisor to Match.com.
So several years ago, I was traveling in Tanzania with one of the last remaining hunting and gathering tribes called the Hadza. And through an interpreter, I asked a 12-year-old boy if he had a girlfriend. And he said, "I saw a girl, and when I grow up, I'm going to kill a zebra and give her the tail." Around the world, people love. They sing for love, they dance for love, they compose songs and stories and ballets and operas and movies about love. They retell myths and legends about love. They have love charms, love potions, love magic, and love holidays like Valentine's Day. We pine for love, we live for love, we kill for love, and we die for love. In fact, the oldest love letter that I saw in Istanbul was from 4,000 years ago. It was written in cuneiform on a lump of clay. In those days, people most likely romanced in person. And as I've been up here tonight, I've began to wonder whether they once had a debate called "Cuneiform is Killing Romance." The real thing, thank you, the real thing that's changing romance is not apps. It's women piling into the job market in cultures around the world. This is the huge social modern trend. In fact, marriage has changed more in the last 100 years than it has in the last 10,000. But romance has not changed. It's like a bamboo tree of Oriental literature. It sways in the breezes of time, but it always springs up again. Romantic love is adaptable, primordial, and unquenchable. So I hope that Tom and I have made a compelling argument for you tonight. And I will conclude with this. to anybody in this room who's looking for love, and anybody on the airwaves who are listening here tonight who's looking for love, apps cannot, will not, and never will kill romance.
Thank you, Helen Fisher. The motion against swipe left, dating apps have killed romance. Here making his closing statement in support of the motion, Eric Klinenberg, sociologist and co-author of Modern Romance.
I've read the histories of procreation, of evolution, and let me say at the outset, procreation and the reproduction of our species is not romance. If you read about the history of men and women getting together and think that that is a love poem, I don't know what book you're reading. Like it or not, social life today is rooted in the internet. I know some 11 and 12-year-old kids too. I have an 11-year-old boy. He's been talking all about Instagram recently and Snapchat. He needs to be on it because if he's not on it, he is missing out on where all the action is. He is not part of the conversation. He has to be there. And when I talk to single people, they tell me the same thing about dating apps. But that doesn't mean that they love it or that they're finding the romance they want. I'm married. My wife is here. And I've spent the last decade of my life writing books about the culture of single people. Bless you, honey. Imagine explaining that to your spouse. When I started this work, I and many of my male friends said, boy, it must be pretty great to be a guy in this world of the swipe apps, online dating. It seems so easy to find love and romance. You just click a button or swipe left or right. And when I finished all this research, I thought the opposite. Thank God I have escaped that cesspool of humanity online. We've heard all about the downsides of digital dating, the ghosting, the pointless messaging with strangers, the racial discrimination, the crass treatment of women, the utter terror of it all. And right now, 1 in 5 people in this country say that they are online during all their waking hours, essentially. So as we approach Valentine's Day, as we think about how to heal together, could you please join me in thinking that we would all be better off if we had a little bit less time with our screens, a little bit less time on the apps, and a little bit more time with each other face to face. Vote for us.
Thank you, Eric Klinenberg. The motion, swipe left, dating apps have killed romance. And here with his closing statement against the motion, Tom Jakes, Vice President of Engineering at Okcupid.
So you've heard a lot of stories today, very emotional ones. I thought it was time I share one myself. So I'd like to take a moment to tell a personal story of how dating apps have affected me. Despite coming up here today, I'm actually a pretty shy guy. I'm not the kind of person who just walks up to someone at a bar and says hello. And when I graduated college and was moving to New York City to work at Okcupid, I didn't know anybody. I really didn't have many friends, and I didn't know what places to go, but I did have a dating app. And I got to see firsthand how it worked and how much the people who worked on it cared about how it worked. And so I made a profile and started using it. And I realized I wasn't alone. Thousands of other people in New York my age were looking for someone too. And then when I was busy trying to find somebody, that someone found me. She messaged me and we ended up talking and chatting for hours. And the more that I knew about her, the more I wanted to know. And after talking for a while, we finally met. And the more time that we spent together, the more precious it became. Eventually, I realized that not only did I want to spend the rest of my life with this person, that I didn't want to spend a moment without her. Her name is Natasha, and she's the love of my life. She's actually standing in the audience tonight. Stories like mine are the reason that I came here to debate tonight. If you vote yes on the motion, you're saying that you believe the world would be a better place without dating apps, and that it would have been better if couples like my wife and I had never had the opportunity to meet. saying dating apps killed romance is saying that other people looking for love should be denied that same opportunity. The reason that I do what I do for a living is because I think everyone should have that opportunity. And because of that, I urge you to vote no on the motion.
Thank you, Tom Jakes. And that concludes round 3 of this Intelligence Squared U.S. debate, where the motion is swipe left, dating apps have killed romance. All right, it's time for you to vote a second time. And I want to explain, because I don't think that I did in the beginning, the way that we announce a winner, the way that we determine who our winner is we look at the difference between the first and the second votes. It's not the absolute number, it's the number that's gone up the most, the team that's pulled in the most votes, either from the undecided or from their opponents. So if you go back to your phones, the process is the same as before, iq2us.org/vote, and you have the choice of for, against, or undecided. I'm going to give you just about 15 to 20 seconds to concentrate on that, but then we're going to continue a little bit here. It's not working? Is that everybody saying that, or just one person? You're fine. Thumbs up from people who it's working. If you're having problems, you refresh the page and it should work then. And I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up, so we think the system's still going well. I want to say a couple of things. One is this was a little bit of a change of pace, this topic for us, and I'm really, really glad that we did it for a couple of reasons. We brought in new audience to learn about who we are, but we also demonstrated that, there were some serious aspects to this conversation. We went down some serious paths, and yet throughout that, despite disagreement, the ability of both sides to remain in the process of this event itself civil and decent and informative and fact-based and listening to the other side all the way through is the goal we set for Intelligence Squared, especially in these times that we're living in. So I want to congratulate all 4 of you for what you did. I also just want to say this to the other shy guy on the stage. For you to, if you said that you're a shy person and you got up and got through this with the skill and the aplomb that you did, Tom, you're great at this. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think he forgot to say that he's married her.
Oh, no, I think we got it.
Did you say that?
I did say that. I hope I said that.
Oh, we have to rewind and do it again. And the other thing I want to say is the questions tonight were all great. People who come to our regular debates know that very often I kind of have to pass on questions because they're repetitive or they're off point or they don't move the topic forward. All of them, from the very first one over there forward, they were terrific. So I want to thank everybody who got up to ask your questions. And there were a lot of hands left up. I apologize to those who didn't get to ask your questions. I'm sure they would have been fantastic and moved us forward. And afterwards, you can, grab these guys and have a little chat with them at the edge of the stage or elsewhere. I just want to run something by all of you as we're coming up to Thanksgiving. This is not competitive. I'm sorry. Well, eventually,
if we can
I'll
only
be
get
right.
through this year, please get us through this year. Someone get us to Thanksgiving. Sorry.
As we're coming up to Valentine's Day, this is not competitive at this point. I just want to sort of hear, well, if you want to compete, you can. But this institution of Valentine's Day, is it itself good for romance? And I'll start. Yeah. What does the audience think on that? That's a no from the audience? Anybody, by applause, anybody think Valentine's Day is good for romance? And on the other side of the coin? Manoush, I'll start with you. What is your take on Valentine's?
I think it's total bullshit, but...
Well, there goes the NPR broadcast.
Sorry. Oh, I think it's... if one were to question its consumerist standpoint, I would say that Valentine's Day is a bit of a sham. But, it's really romantic? My husband could not be here tonight because he's home with our kids because he had to relieve my mother from babysitting. And, he really wanted to come, but he was like that's romantic to me. And that's just today.
And the problem with Valentine's Day is?
It's just one more thing on my to-do list, packing the lunches, getting the kids there, figuring out what time they're getting picked up. Now I'm supposed to do something I don't know. No, I have enough going on in my life. I don't need another holiday.
How about you, Tom? Tom Jakes.
I'm starting to think maybe Manoush just isn't a very romantic person.
So sad.
I actually think that Valentine's
Pragmatic romance.
I actually think that it's kind of nice to have a day to set aside to spend with the person that you love.
You don't have kids, man. Like.
Helen, how about you?
I like getting Valentines. But anyway, I'm an anthropologist, so I'm really not in the should business of whether it's good or bad, but I'm very interested in it. It's one of these things, it's one of those times that marks who you are. If you've got a good person in your life, then you can really celebrate. And if you don't, it's a real wake-up call to get onto an app. Hey, about that. And, and find the right one.
Oh. NPR also doesn't like commercials. So.
Oh!
Eric?
I'm with Manoush. I think there's like a Venn diagram somewhere, and like the people who are really into online dating are also really into Valentine's Day. And then there's these like hopeless. Every day is romantic in my family, in real life. Well, so I listened to Manoush, and I also looked at my wife who's sitting in the second row. My wife, whom I met face to face the old-fashioned way. And I know you're against that over there. But I just saw that kind of wave of nausea hit her when they started talking about Valentine's Day, and I felt vindicated, honey, and free to say, we might not go on a Valentine's date this year, but I love you, and we'll have romantic nights another time. When we're not being forced to.
And I reiterate that intelligence squared, intellidating can be a very hot evening.
I buy that.
So we want to see more of you back here with your significant others. I want to tell you that Intelligence Squared, for those of you, I know we have a lot of new audience tonight. I want to share with you a little bit about who we are. We are a nonprofit organization. We do these debates. Essentially, it's a philanthropic activity. We create them and then we put them out into the world through all of the apps that I have mentioned, through all the channels that I've mentioned on Newsy and on public radio, and through apps that you can get at the Google Store and the Apple Store, and on Roku. So we're kind of everywhere, but the really great thing is that a lot of schools use us, and I'm talking about schools from the college level down to elementary school. They use us to teach, to talk about civil discourse, to present competing ideas, and we're very, very proud of that, and we're very pleased to have so many people in this audience tonight who bought tickets, but I want to let you know that ticket price doesn't come close to covering the cost of what we do, so we ask for and appreciate enormously support from anybody who can give it. And I want to let you know, everybody's got phones in their hands, we know that tonight. You can support us by texting a donation, or the process to start a donation. If you text the word debate to 797979, that will give you a link to donate online, and any amount helps that, and I really mean it, any amount helps, because that will let us keep doing more and more of these. I think that I said at the beginning that tonight was debate number 146. Debate 147 is coming up on March 9th. We are taking part in the Brussels Forum, which is sponsored by the German Marshall Fund. In that debate, the motion is going to be humanitarian intervention does more harm than good. And in that debate, I like hearing that sort of. I think it's going to be it's a very, very important topic, and like this one, it actually has many, many layers to it, and I think it's going to be great. The Hoover Institution's Kori Schake, who has debated with us before, and she is a fantastic debater, and the co-founder of Doctors Without Borders, Bernard Kouchner, will be debating that motion. If it's actually in Brussels, so I don't expect to see that many of you, but you can watch it. You can watch the live stream, and the timing is good for being able to watch here in the U.S., and you can subscribe to our podcast, the Intelligence Squared podcast. That's available on Google Play and Apple Podcasts. On March 27th, we are back here in New York City for a debate on religion, and the question is whether religion is a net benefit or harm to society. Arguing in defense of religion will be the New York Times bestselling author, Deepak Chopra. Arguing on the other side will be the science historian and professional skeptic, Michael Shermer. Tickets to who has also debated with us in the past. Another spectacular, it's a voice you want to hear on stage. You want to witness what he can do. Tickets to that debate will be available on our website, which is iq2us.org, shortly. Later on this season, we're going to be debating, I'm anticipating the response to this one compared to 4 weeks ago, we're going to be debating the viability of Bitcoin. No, it's still in the game. With Overstock CEO Patrick Byrne and legal scholar Eric Posner, and they will be taking on, after that, we're going to be taking on later on in the season the issue of net neutrality, and on that one we have the chairwoman of Mozilla, Mitchell Baker. And again, visit IQ2US to learn more. So we're taking a few more minutes to calculate the results, and I'm going to, hang on just a second. I get a note on my iPad because we're all high tech here, and it gives me an update on where we are.
Our side is for hand voting, but we lost that.
Right, exactly.
Oh yeah. Do you want to hand out the paper ballots, and then maybe your eyes will meet somebody on the
Come up and
way?
tell us how you.
Just saying.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So, okay. Normally, what I do is I share with you what the numbers in the first vote were and what the numbers in the second vote were, and then I tell you what the swing was between the first and the second. Our system is not spitting out those first notes and the second notes, but mysteriously, it has done the calculation for the swing. And I guarantee, well, I'm not going to say guarantee because I don't actually know, but I'm pretty sure that within ultimately we will be producing those numbers. But I am now going to announce the winner based on the swing. And I'm just checking to see if there's an update for this. Okay, here it comes. The basic result was that the side arguing for the motion went down 9 percentage points. The side arguing against the motion went up 29 percentage points. That means the team arguing against the motion are our winners. Congratulations to them. Thank you from me, John Donvan.